Hello and welcome to Austin Real Estate Experts, where each week we discuss Austin's dynamic real estate market and showcase some of Austin's finest homes. With us today, we have Greg Young with Austin Real Estate Experts.
Happy to be here.
Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
We have Dagny Gomez del Campo, VP of Public Affairs for Studio Built by Amherst. Welcome,
Thanks
Dagny.
for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you today.
Welcome.
You know, there's an exciting new home community that is launching, really just kind of launched in the Lockhart area by the name of Firefly. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today
Exciting
because
stuff.
it really is and innovative. And so one of the things that I want to jump right into is, gosh, there's lots of new home communities all over the metro area. Most of them are on the periphery, right? Because that's where the land is.
Right.
And Lockhart is gaining some interest and attention. What was it about the Lockhart community that really appealed to Studio Built by Amherst as a place to launch their first full developed community? I know traditionally they've worked in different spaces. So I'd love to talk about Lockhart and why Lockhart.
So, great question and very easy answer. Why not Lockhart, right? I know you guys have spent a lot of time there recently. As someone who's been in Austin now for the past decade, it has been really incredible to see the growth that cities like Lockhart have. You know, just not even 30 minutes from downtown Austin, and all of a sudden you're in an incredibly charming, rich history type town that is really seeing a ton of growth. We're seeing a lot of manufacturing and technology companies put down roots there, and people want to live where they work. That is super important. So as we were kind of thinking what's next for Studio Built by Amherst, Lockhart was a very, very clear and easy choice for us.
I'm sure the barbecue had to do something with it, right?
Okay, I'll be honest. The ribs and the brisket don't hurt.
Right.
There was a lot of people offering to do a lot of diligence trips there at the beginning.
Right, for sure.
But you've been to the downtown square, right? It's stunning,
Love
it's beautiful, and I think the city, frankly, has just done a really graceful job of embracing that history and that tradition, but also really wanting young families to bring the new and to modernize the city. And what does kind of the combination of that look like as they build a new social fabric?
You know, there's so much charm and character there, and I'm excited about that community. You know, working in the real estate space here in this area for a couple of decades, maybe more than that, but we've seen how suburban areas have had massive spikes in their populace. Just we watched Cedar Park and Leander build out, Buda, and then Kyle, and it's now further south, southeast, and all of these places at their moment when they were right there at the kind of the mesh point of where do we go next, and were still emerging markets, and now they're very established.
Right.
At the time, it was considered a bold play.
Right,
You know,
right.
to Kyle,
Yeah.
really?
Now it's the anticipated play, right?
You're
Yeah.
North San Antonio. You
Yeah.
know, so Lockhart I think makes a lot of sense, especially with the growth out there. And
Yeah.
and I think you're spot on. One of the things that we struggle with sometimes in the real estate brokerage community is having clients that are looking for home product where they don't have to commute 45 minutes because their option is just, some of the older homes that were built, 30, 40 years ago that, have some of those nagging aggravations that come with older resale homes,
Right.
roofs and functional obsolescence where the plans don't really live the way that our lives live today,
Right.
So having new home product that meets the needs of today's homeowners in the markets where they want to live is important. It really is.
Well, and you add affordability to that as well, and it's where it's at.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned affordability, Greg, because you know one of the types of consumers that might be drawn to Firefly would be someone that wants to kind of live and work in the same community and really put down roots and be a stakeholder in that community. But then there's also people that maybe have grown up and lived in the Austin area for 10, 20 years. They've seen their value go up. Some of these folks may even have their homes paid off or they've been passed to them over the generations.
Right.
But now the cost of their property taxes, because their values have skyrocketed,
Right. Right.
are overbearing and want either the affordability, where maybe they can sell their current home and just pay cash for a modern home that's really built again for the way that people live today, instead of a home that was built a century ago, near in East Austin, for example,
Yeah.
or some of these mid-centuries homes that have seen better days and haven't been remodeled, and just being able to afford a home
Right.
and still be in the greater Austin area,
Well,
I think
it's-
has value.
For sure, and it's a sound financial move too, because like you said, now's a great time to cash out if you've been living in Austin for some time. You reinvest
That's
in a
right.
property that's going to have a warranty and probably not need any maintenance for a long time, and watch that grow. Right? It's
That's
just,
right.
Yeah.
And when you think about the life cycle of an emerging community, they endure. But when is the best time to buy into a new community or a new market?
Now.
At its inception, right?
Yeah.
When it's just about to take off. The people that bought Cedar Park 20 years ago like those investments in Leander and Kyle and Buda when things were on sale.
Right.
When it was just
Yeah.
a great time. It was in its infancy in terms of where it is today.
Right.
They had a crystal ball.
That's right.
I think we have one now, right?
I think we
With
do.
Lockhart, I think we might.
We do. And so Firefly is exciting. But even more exciting than that, I think, is some of the innovation that is kind of sewn into the concept. And I think Studio built by Amherst and what they're doing in Firefly on the innovation front is significant and impactful. Can you talk a little bit about the process by which the homes are brought to market and the innovation involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for decades in the U.S., home building has been done a very particular way. And, we do not make it easy in this country to build a home.
It's messy.
It's messy, it's expensive, there's a lot of administrative, a lot of spreadsheets. And one thing that we have started to realize at Studio Built was how can we get better about the how we build that home, and making sure that how is not just going to be better cost savings or anything like that, but how is it going to be a better product for that family to move into. So it's turnkey, so they're not making major repairs. So every nook, cranny, and amenity you would want inside a home is built in there, and that comes to the precision piece.
Yeah.
So our flavor of that is what we call offsite construction, right? That's where we're building a home about 80% offsite and doing that last 20% onsite. Now that's built to all the same standards, building codes, materials that the home built onsite with a hammer and nail that someone's probably used to seeing. It's the exact same. It's just happening in a much more efficient, industrialized process in a housing facility. So for instance, in Firefly, those are built at our facility in Cuero, which would love to take anyone who wants to come visit out to see it. It's really, really cool to see it in person.
It's impressive. When we first toured it, we were completely impressed by the efficiencies. I mean, you can really see the efficiencies when you tour that facility.
And the quality controls, right, are unbelievable. A traditional, when you're building on site, it's hard to get inspectors out there. It's hard to have those quality control checks just because of the nature of the environment in which you're building in.
Right.
In a controlled environment in a housing facility, you see these worksheets, right? There's over 200 times that home is getting checked on every screw, every nut, every bolt is perfectly in place. And with that precision comes a durability and a lifespan of a home that I think is really hard to beat from more traditional home building processes.
Right. And these homes are actually on a concrete foundation,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
You know, we would never endeavor to have an automobile built in your own garage,
Right.
right? Think about the precision and the controls that are in place. You know, the first time I recognized the value of controlled environment construction was touring a truss building factory. You know, generally there's stick built where trusses are constructed on site in the best available controls that are available on site. You know, a sawhorse,
Right.
and you know, chalking it up and
Sure.
cutting it, marking it and cutting it. And some people might say, well, that you know, there's a certain nostalgia to that, right? But is it superior, and are the controls in place? You know, when I saw trusses being built in a factory, I thought, oh, this is better.
Yeah.
This is better than this different team of people that builds a home. You know, home builders traditionally employ subcontractors, not their own employees. And it's not always the same crew building the same home. And, you know, weather's a factor. You know, sometimes you got lumber sitting out there getting rained on and in the elements for a week or two. The site gets muddy. You've got these dirty, muddy studs up on the wall being, you know, you tried to brush off or rinsed off. Maybe it'll rain again and rinse off the mud.
Well, and we've seen it firsthand, right, Matt? Because you and I started our real estate careers. Well, I did. You were in real estate first, but we both spent some time in new home sales, and that was, you know, where they were building homes stick built on site, and we had talk sequences just ready. Because, you know, like I said earlier, it's a messy process, and that's
The
what we
home
used
is
to have.
also the lunchroom.
Well, it's everything, right?
And the breakfast table.
We used to say, you know, and especially when you sold to project managers or engineers who were used to nice, clean, tight processes that kept to schedules and things like that, we'd say, look, this is an ugly process. And what you've got to understand is that you've got hundreds of people touching thousands of different pieces and parts in the weather.
Yeah.
In the weather.
Right.
So, and that's how we had to sell through that. But this, when I think about your processes, it eliminates all of that, and not to mention the waste. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say too, when you're in the facility, it almost feels like the best of both worlds, right? Because you are seeing, you know, our folks out there with a hammer and nail in the controlled environment. A lot of the traditional things that have worked for hundreds of years to build a home. There's a reason why home building has stayed a particular way. A lot of it works.
Right.
There's elements to that construction process that, whether it's in a controlled environment or using technology to laser cut certain pieces of wood, which has a ton to do with the waste reduction. You know,
Right.
our models have 40% less waste
That's
than a
right.
traditional home building.
40% less.
Yes,
That's huge.
we're using, it is comical how every little single 2x4 is getting used and put into one of those
Right,
homes,
right.
which is really
Right.
incredible. But I like that it's the marrying of both, right? It's not saying this way's bad and this way is this much better, as much as it's we are taking the best parts of
Right.
the traditional system
Right.
and enhancing and optimizing and augmenting that in the facility.
And I think a big piece of what adds to the efficiency is the fact that the people that are putting these homes together and building them are employees and not subcontractors. I
Exactly.
mean, I think that probably cuts the build time down by at least a third.
Well, you're a lot more vested, right? You're vested in the outcome of the construction.
Yeah.
You're not a hired hand that's coming in to do this one job, and then you're going to a different community,
Right.
and then, you know, oh, I got to go do this now. Oh, now I got to go do this warranty
Well,
call.
you're accountable.
That's
You're
right.
now accountable.
That's right. Yeah. So it's very very structured and precise. And you know, I was just thinking about that. with 40% less waste, that means every 2.5 times you can create another home, with the savings. And the impact, the environmental impact, the social impact. I mean, it's all very sensible. People constructing a home in really climate-controlled conditions.
Yeah.
They're happy. They're working with their coworkers on a daily basis, the same people, so you get some synergy.
Right.
It's just it's really a magnificent process. So really excited to be a part of marketing it.
Yeah, for
honestly.
sure. We should probably also touch on kind of the finish out, because we haven't really painted that picture yet for folks. But when you compare the finish out on these homes to most of its competition, it shines, right? Yeah, it shines from exterior to the kitchens to the trim work, everything, and it really shows that it's built in precision.
Yep.
Some builders will talk in terms of their standard features, right? And I think it's not unfair to say that Firefly has higher standards. So,
You said it, not me.
well, it's what I have observed. What else was interesting to me was the DC power component.
Yes.
That translates to significant savings. And we talk about things that save energy. And energy consumption is, it's a real challenge. As we grow and we meet the demands of a growing population, we further tax
The grid.
and more homes without more power means, a little bit more instability there. But using DC power, the reductions in the usage are marked. It's the cost of energy. Really, when you think about a value proposition for a home, it is the cost of ownership, right? So the cost of ownership is many things. It's the sales price. It's your monthly payments, your down payment, all the things that we always think about.
Right.
But there's also the cost to heat and cool the home.
Right.
And there's the cost to maintain the home. So a home that's built in controlled conditions with superior energy efficiency and a warranty is generally going to be a lower cost of ownership.
For sure. It's a win.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, once you get those utility bills on the 31st, I think you're going to be feeling very good
Yeah.
about your decision because it matters, right? And it's significantly lower than what you would get with a traditional home of a similar size. And it's Texas, right? You're running the AC 10 months out of the year. It matters.
And I think you guys have a test home down in Cuero where you run the electricity, air conditioning lights 24/7. And even that bill is, I don't remember the number, but it's far less than what a
I think it's
typical.
like $80.
Yeah, I was going to say less than half. I mean, in some cases, that's.
Yeah, I don't know. Who is your electricity provider? Because mine is definitely more than double
I know,
that.
I know. That's astounding.
It really is. So, I think if solar were more affordable
Yeah.
and, maybe more integrated into the look
Yeah.
of a home aesthetically, it might be more popular.
Right.
Certainly tax credits have helped. But this is something of the caliber of energy reduction and usage reduction.
Without the $30,000 acquisition cost up front.
Exactly.
Right. When
Yeah,
you
it's
first,
a stepping stone.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
There's some builders in town that offer solar or compel solar in the community. And, while it's laudable to have those initiatives, you also make the choice for the consumer that they have this contract
Right.
with solar, and it's either an installment contract, and then when they go to sell the home, buyers sometimes will push back on being, just foisted into a solar contract, right? So they want the choice. In this case, the innovation and the energy savings is built in.
And in my experience, the really, when you're thinking about solar, you have to ask yourself, excuse me, am I planning on living in this home for the rest of my life? And if the answer is yes, and you're not 80 years old, then it might be a good value proposition. But the problem is if you're going to live there for 5 years, it just doesn't pencil out because it is $20,000 or $30,000 up front. Whereas with this, you just step right into it, and there's no long-term commitment to the efficiency.
Well, think about it like this. If you were saving $150 a month, something like that off of what a normal energy bill would look like, then you might be able to buy $25,000 more home and have the same cost of ownership. Or be able to buy a home that you might not have originally thought you could afford, but because your energy bills are lower, it makes it more tenable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, you know, the other thing about Firefly is there's a lifestyle component to it that I think is worth talking about.
Right.
I think there is a commercial piece up front that the
Mixed
developers envision being complementary in terms of the
Lifestyle.
just different businesses that kind of support the community.
Right.
And then also, I think there's some amenity pieces that are worth talking about as well. What are some of the amenities that Firefly will feature residents, other than this great affordable, energy-saving
Luxury.
home with higher standards and choice? And we'll get back to the choice, but there's a couple other amenities in the community that I think we can talk about as well.
Yeah, I think it's important. And when we were designing Firefly, we wanted it to be, hey, I'm going and I'm commuting into Austin, and I want that to be easily and accessible for me. Hey, I want to spend all weekend with my family in Lockhart or in the Firefly community, no problem, right? Yeah. Whether it's playgrounds, the walkability and the trails, as the commercial, complementary amenities really start to kind of fill out around the community, you want to be able to do both. You can hop into Austin for dinner, San Marcos for dinner.
Right.
You can go float the river, and then you can spend all day Sunday within the community, showing the kids a good time, spending a nice time at home. It's the best of both worlds.
And I don't know that we mentioned it yet, but it's definitely worth a mention, the fact that it's right off of 130. Yeah, so convenience and just being able to, it's close to the airport, it's close to all kinds of high-tech jobs, and it's fantastic, yeah.
So something else that we'll talk about before we wrap up today is choice and timing. Because the homes are constructed off-site and in these controlled conditions, the timeline's more predictable. And so the sales team has the ability to order a home to be built in the elevation of the consumer's choice, on the home side of their choice, and have that delivered, I believe, within about 120 days. Is that right?
Yeah.
It is quick.
Yeah. And that is much faster than what traditional home builders are offering in their communities.
Right.
First of all, they generally panel out their home sites. Paneling out means they assign this home, this floor plan, and this elevation is going on lot 1, and this is on 2, and this is on 3. And if somebody comes in and says, well, but I want this plan on lot 1, not the other. I'm sorry, we've paneled it out. That's the way it's going to be.
Right.
With the exception of showcase inventory homes, all of the available home sites, consumers can choose their plan, their elevation, their feature level. I think there's 3 different packages of finishes. So these homes can be very, very highly amenitized.
Right.
To a person's taste. They can put their signature on it.
Right.
And have all this done in 4 months. And a traditional model is not that type of choice, generally about a 6-month construction cycle, maybe 5.5, but we're talking really quick.
Right.
And the sureness of it, right? You know,
Yeah.
as we think about families who are maybe selling their current home, like you mentioned, going to use that towards this purchase.
Right.
Or I think a lot of younger families who maybe are living in a high rise or an apartment building in San Marcos or Austin.
Right.
And they're saying, listen, my lease is up this day, or we close on our house on this day. I need to have a place to take my family on the first.
That's huge.
I think, yeah, the sureness of that date and the speed is critical.
Well, because, you know, most of the on-site or site-built homes, they won't even quote a closing date until they're 30 to 60 days out.
yeah.
And that's tough for people, right?
You're like, that's weird because that's not how any other housing I'm currently living in is working on
Right.
that timetable. So
Right, exactly.
Well, this has been really informative. Greg, Dagny, I appreciate y'all sharing about the Firefly community today. I think Firefly is a fantastic option for someone that's thinking about a new home. I think prices start right at about $300,000.
Yeah.
There may or may not be one at $299,900, I think, but there's some financing incentives, there's choice, a chance to live in a community where you could potentially work or easily commute into Austin. It's a heck of an option for consumers. So I'd like to invite everyone to go visit the Firefly community. And again, thank you all for being here. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next Sunday on the Austin Real Estate Experts.